Okay, parents, are you feeling like burnout and anxious right now? We're all in some really crazy times. And are you looking for ways to just more deeply connect with your family? Today, we have JoAnne White here, and we're going to dig into sort of like how do we get to honor our emotions? How do we set those boundaries? And how do we reconnect with our families and our children? It sounds like a tall order, but we're going to make it happen here. I'm going to bring JoAnne on in a second to have you meet her. But first, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about the show. My name is Cheryl Bassett. I'm founder of Unstoppable Connections, international bestseller, and creator of the award-winning Unstoppable Family Meeting Toolkit. I am also the host of the show, Kitchen Table Conversations, as part of the Edge Network and Global One Network. Now, families do get to tap into the resources that I create, which is around 4 gifts. And those 4 gifts have everything to do with how a family can build a circle of trust at their kitchen table. If you want to reach out and just learn more about that work that I do, discover the 4 gifts, you can actually go to unstoppableconnections.com. And if you have an idea for the show or you want to be on the show, you can also go to kitchentableconversations.com and share either an idea for it or if you'd like to join us. Now, what I like to do is to set an intention for a show. I do this for every show because I feel like it's just so incredibly important to set that foundation. This show does cover the fun stuff, the tough stuff, and everything in between, but it's all designed to ignite conversations, to strengthen your family, and to create a positive ripple out into the world. So what we do is we kind of harness one of the energies of the 4th gift that I share. I said I share 4 gifts. The 4th gift is the gift of love. And we unwrap that gift by choosing to celebrate ourselves and others. So it's with that open heart and open mind and intention that we come here to celebrate the person who came here today to share her heart and her talents with us. So let me just real quickly tell you a little bit about JoAnne, and then I'm going to bring her on so you can get to meet her. She is an empowerment coach and gives parents the tools they need to create healthy relationships with their children by addressing conflict, making intentional connections, and building resilience. JoAnne attended Wells College and George Washington University, where she went on to teach in both private and public schools. She was also a counselor overseeing student life, career services, financial aid, and enrollment. She is now a certified life coach and really passionate about working with parents and children who are struggling. She creates genuine transformation for families. And you can learn more about her at her website. But we've got her email we're going to share with you later so you can connect with her. But right now you're going to learn more about her by meeting her. So let me bring on JoAnne. Hey,
hi.
How are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm fine. Hanging in.
Hanging in. We're all hanging in, right?
Hanging in with the pandemic and every little stress that comes up each day, but we're hanging in. We're well. We're grateful for what we do have.
And that's like the most important thing, right? Stepping into the gratefulness of it. That's how we baby step into the really, I guess, in the energy and the space that we all want to be in. And so the gratefulness is really important. You and I connected because we did a summit together, right? Which was really cool. It was kind of fun. And I got to learn more about what you do. You got to learn a little bit more about what I do. And so we realized the synergy. And so that's hence the reason you're here. And what I would love to do is if you could just, though, I love to start at this point a little bit about your journey, about why are you passionate about what you do? And kind of what led you to your moment of, being here and to share today on the show.
Sure, I'd be happy to share. I always like to share my story. I come from a background of education. I've spent a lot of time, many years in education, and had a career in higher education as a counselor and an administrator. I love teaching, though. I just love teaching. I enjoyed adolescence. I taught high school. And so all parents out there who are struggling with your teens, they're really great. It's going to be okay. But I know what the struggle is because I have 3 actually adult children right now. And my oldest daughter really struggled with mental health issues. And it became a serious concern in the family. And when someone isn't quite right or not well, be it physical or emotional, it affects the whole family. And I remember very clearly that after a long time of trying so many avenues, my husband and I found a group, a parent group, at affiliated with McLean Hospital. I'm in Boston. That's a big psychiatric hospital in our area. And we went to this group and found other parents who were dealing with a very similar issue. And the support and the energy and the emotional attention that provided made me realize how important it is for you not to go it alone. You don't have to do it alone. It's a really, whether your child has issues or not, parenting is pretty overwhelming. So when I retired from my administrative position, I said, coaching seems like the right thing for me, and parents are my love. I think you can. I look back and there are things that I would have done differently, and we all kind of can do that once your children have, but we all want our kids to feel connected and to grow up to be resilient and I don't want to say happy because I don't believe in that word, but effective adults, in contributing adults, and we really need that in the world today. I'm all about emotional intelligence and how that is the training that all adults need and all kids need in order to live with your emotions and share them with the world. Would be a kinder place.
Yes, kindness is good. I just did a kindness ninja challenge with someone, and it's like just totally fun, right? Like every day waking up in the space of just like, how can we go out today and just be kind? Yeah, do something positive. Okay, so I know we have some things we're going to talk about here, but you've already triggered a thought for me.
Go right ahead.
Well, first of all,
we'll talk about triggers probably, Cheryl.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about triggers. This is a good trigger, but just you talked about the support thing. Number one, this wasn't I'm going to jump to something else here in a second, but I think that was a really important piece you shared already. Like, go get support. There are other people that are in the same situation right now. Families are navigating new dynamics more than ever before. So that support is out there. Like, you're not on this journey alone for sure. And you said, I don't believe in the word happy. Okay. Now I love the word joy for me, but I'm just curious because I've not had anybody ever say that. What do you mean when you say I'm not really like a big fan, or I don't believe in the word happy so much?
I kind of think that in our culture, psychological well-being is equated with happiness. But I think that's a little bit of a cheat because we have all kinds of emotions and we could label them in so many different ways. And happy is just a little vague. Are you excited? Are you ecstatic? Are you complacent? How high is your energy? How high is your pleasantness? I really believe that emotionally stable and healthy people have the right emotion at the right time. So sometimes, yes, joy, and hopefully mostly joy. But unless you learn to really regulate your emotions and share them, I think that makes for a much happier person and a more stable, well-adjusted leader, kind of person. Happy is, I know there was this whole happiness craze in the early 2000s. Rubin, I mean, all these people that talked about, and I mean, it was taught at Harvard, happiness. But I think that's a hard thing to always strive for. We can't be happy all the time. So you have to sort of deal with your emotions as they come up, and you have every minute, you probably have 100 emotions,
Right.
Always changing.
That's good. It makes me think about JoAnne. I had someone on the show one time, and I thought this was a good distinction as well. And I think you're kind of making the same distinction. We were talking about how we talk about self-esteem for kids, and self-esteem is important, but self-esteem really comes from out here. Like, so I might be happy as long as I'm getting my self-esteem out here, but what about internal inherent right? My
That's
own
right.
inherent worth. So there's a big difference between self-esteem and inherent worth. And I feel like that's what you're kind of saying. There's a big difference by showing people looking at somebody and say, well, they looked happy, but what's really happening?
What's really going on?
Yeah. And that happiness, if it comes from within, right? Not that it means every day you're happy. It just means inherently, you know what that feels like, and you know, can tap into it. I kind of feel like you're making that same distinction. Like we don't, and there's a movie, forgive me, but Inside Out. Did you ever see that?
Yes.
Yeah. And that talked about like, it was,
and that's what emotional intelligence is to be able to sort of see, look, it's okay to be sad, but it's better if you acknowledge it, talk about it, and figure out the root cause, because then maybe you can deal with it better. And emotional, that wave of emotions that you mentioned, Cheryl, is makes me think of there was once a counselor that I was talking to. She worked in a high school, so she had teenagers coming in all day long, you know, so upset about something, you know, which in their minds was huge. And sometimes it was huge, but she finally learned that if you let them settle in and slow down and let them talk about it, and you can then resolve it, because you're in a heightened state that your amygdala, you know, going crazy with fear of flight. It's really hard to have a conversation that works. And she said she aligned it to like a snow globe. Shake that snow globe and let everything settle, and then you can have a conversation. And I think parents need to do that with their kids, because step back. It might not be the right time for a conversation, but definitely there's that we all have that ebb and flow of emotions. Yeah. So Inside Out is really a good movie for people to watch.
I love that movie because it was like, you have permission. Like, it was giving kids permission to express their emotions. They didn't always have to be happy. You know, they had to be kind, which is different. Like, you can't just come out and, you know, like, if my kids came downstairs and they were in a really bad space, I'm like, you know what? I think you should go back upstairs, get in bed, and get out on the other side, because the guy you got out on this morning isn't working so well. So, you know, but just, you know, because there's a difference between that. But I totally agreed that acknowledgement, and actually an appreciation for the fact, first of all, contrast is a gift, right? Okay. Because in contrast, we get to, you know, figure out what we don't want, so we know what we do. And how could we appreciate the happy times if we don't have the sad times?
Right. Yeah. Right. And learn how to deal with that as well. And you're gonna run into conflict and unfortunate circumstances in your life. You got to prepare your kids for that. If you tell them, just don't worry about it, be happy, I feel like that's like a failure. That's not really, that's uninvolved in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, because then they learn to just fake being happy. Yeah. So beautiful. So, okay. Well, I'm glad we got that.
We got off topic. Okay.
Well, no, we're not off topic. I actually think it's very relevant probably to some of the stuff you're going to get into, but I want to make sure we honor, one of the things you had down here was the symptoms of burnout. And thought maybe you might want to jump into that a little bit. So, because we really are talking about this burnout, right? Where parents are feeling overwhelmed. So go ahead.
Yeah, burnout is a real thing. I think that people, you know, it's been thrown around, but it's a diagnosable thing. And actually it has various stages. And I think it goes from a little overwhelmed to really a feeling of helplessness. And it's caused, I think, by unremitting stress. So right now, I think a lot of parents are feeling more stressed out than they might normally be. But burnout, if you're not enjoying your parenting to a critical point, if you're exhausted and fatigue, that's different than just being a little tired. It's fatigue from this overwhelming stress and maybe lack of sleep. You're not sleeping well. You're not eating right. It's hard to just keep focus. You're feeling disconnected from your family, from your partner, a little more disconnected from your kids. And there's not much joy. There's that word. There's not a whole lot of joy that you're feeling. You know, you should be joyful as a parent, but it's just not happening. Um, it's you physically can be, you could be having headaches or stomach aches. I mean, much as your kids sometimes when they're stressed out have physical symptoms. So I think those are all things to be watching for, because I think when you get to a stage of habitual burnout, it leads to depression. I mean, and you should watch out for that and give into it. Don't deny that you're getting there. I mean, that's one of the things I have in my mind, Cheryl, about burnout, is that if you feel you're burned out, you know, more than likely you are.
So if you're asking that question, you probably know the answer, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So, so I know that there's sort of, and I don't know exactly where this gets to go in our conversation, but you're talking about sort of the stages of it, but also sort of then some of the things that can crop up, maybe more so with your kids as you're looking at it, the threat to self or to family. And you talked a little bit about this in your, even when you were saying like the fact that your daughter had this issue, it impacted the whole family.
Whole family.
Yeah. So do you see, I mean, what would you say again? What are you looking for in those areas? What are the stages of that process for someone?
I think that you have a honeymoon stage. You know that you're kind of, you're off. Your focus might be a little off. Your concentration, but then the stress starts to build, and stress is cumulative. So once, you know, and stress is your anxiety is caused by worrying about the future. So if there's anything that's happening right now for parents and their kids, is just this uncertainty about the future. So if that anxiety increases, I think it leads to chronic stress, and it becomes a daily thing. You know, you're waking up at 4 a.m. going, uh-oh, what if? And, you know, you feel like you can't plan, and you're just stressed out to the point where depression is that, you know, you might want to deny that it's depression, but I think that kind of overwhelming stress can lead you, even if it's just temporary, to a stage of depression. So I think people need to be self-aware. I think parents need to be self-aware, and it's okay, especially now. I feel like burnout, I mean, most parents who are, and especially those moms who are dealing with, you know, homeschooling, cooking, cleaning, they've lost their jobs because they couldn't manage all the variants. It's just, of course you're stressed and you're probably burned out. So, you know.
Yeah, I used to tell my boys, like, you know, how you feel is just how you feel. It's not good or bad, right?
No, but talk about how you feel.
But talk about it, right? Like, yeah. So, and then the other thing I think is always just really important. Like, what stresses out one person might not stress out another. And I feel like stress is like beauty; it lies in the eyes of the beholder. And you know, so sometimes I think we think, oh, well, they look like they're doing fine over there doing that. It doesn't have anything to do with it. It's about getting in tune and being in awareness of how you feel, right? Like it's your emotions that you get to tap into and worry about, not like comparative. And I think that happens as well too. Anyway, I think that's good. And so just like thinking about your daughter, what were some of the first signs, I think, or when did you start to be aware?
She was really, she had graduated from college, was living with some college friends. And I think it started with depression. Maybe it's been building, but she was anxious. She has an anxiety disorder that really kind of paralyzes her. And it got really bad while she was in graduate school. Now, I don't know how, but she completed her master's, but then came home for a while and was willing to look for help, but it was pretty challenging. And it just was definitely, I think it affected my other two. She was the oldest, my other two children who had their own issues that they were pushing away. Because how much more can mom and dad deal with? Kind of. So we never were like digging our heads in the sand. I think that's, you know, we have to destigmatize asking for help.
Right.
I think actually true for parents now with burnout, because
Mm-hmm.
if they feel burned out and their anxiety is overwhelming, remember it's contagious. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
that anxious and overwhelmed and fatigued and stressed out, your kids feel that. Now,
Oh
from
yeah.
little kids to older kids, I mean, it's in the air. So it's really okay to look for support and help. And we learned that a little bit the hard way, but I promote that with all the parents that I
Oh yeah,
talk to.
absolutely. Um, and like I said, right now, more support out there probably than ever before, right? For a lot of these things that are coming up for families that they've had to, probably could have ignored, quite frankly, and not seen. Now they actually have to, because they're spending so much more time together.
They might see things in their
They
kids.
might see things. So I think instead of looking at it as a bad thing, look at it as a blessing that you get to kind of, delve into this and kind of try to work through it together as a family. Yeah, I have a son one of my sons is, I mean, it's funny because Brian's much more of a stressed out individual, a little bit like, gets obsessed and OCD about stuff, anxious about stuff or whatever. And then David is my laid back flowing kid, like life happens, and isn't it great? And I just remember one day Brian looking at me and saying, man, I just want to live in David's world. It's so much better than mine. And it made me laugh, but it was that just how they handle things. Right. And again, I'm like, hey, that's okay. You know what? It's not good or bad. It's just your journey. Let's just communicate about it. It's the communication, right?
It is, you're right. It's the connection and communication. And if you are intentional about it as a parent, you really can, you can feel that bond with your child. So it's not good to just, and I think actually kids right now are more anxious than they were pre-pandemic. And so you're right. It's a time to look at it. And if your child had a tendency toward maybe being a little anxious, this may have made it worse. I think some kids are actually blossoming in the pandemic. Then it wasn't the right environment for them in some ways, but you just have to be whatever's going on for you in your household.
Again, I think it's just all like we all get to experience it differently. And there was an article that the headline is that yes, kids may be getting behind in school, but are some of them getting ahead in life? And I think that there's some of that happening as well.
Yeah. I mean, do you want your kids to excel in math and science and athletics? Is that the value that you want them to take with them into their adulthood? Or compassion, kindness, coping skills, being able to socially learning about it seems to me that you're more prepared for the work world if you're a kind, compassionate, empathic person.
Yeah. And again, looking at my two children, and I'm sure this is true in every family, my younger son, I think he would have gone through this without any issues. He would have been one of those that excelled. My other son, I think he would have probably, because he likes structure. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's a difference too. So every family is going to have their own dynamic around it. I think it's, again, just allowing yourself to step into the awareness of it. So
absolutely. Self-awareness, awareness of what's going on. There's no question.
So you had down here, I feel like we've probably covered a couple of these already, but strategies for overcoming and coping with the burnout. What would you be recommending?
Okay, there are one really important one is self-care. There's no way that you're going to be able to overcome that stress and to deal with your day-to-day if you don't take time for yourself. Find something that makes you feel good about you. People do meditation, journaling, go for a massage, get on Zoom with a friend, have a cup of tea. There's whatever it takes for you that makes you happy. Go for a walk in nature. Self-care is not selfish. It's self-love and self-compassion. I mean, it's really hard to keep giving to everybody around you in the family and do your best when you're totally drained. So self-care can cut some of the overwhelm, and your kids will be happy to see you taking care of yourself, and they'll model that strategy for themselves because they need downtime too. So self-care is one of the big tips that I try to give out about overcoming burnout. Another is expectations. And particularly in these times, Cheryl, I feel like we have to manage our expectations. Maybe you're trying to do too much or be too much. There is no perfect parent. What you're doing, you have to see it as good enough. And look at what you're expecting or what you're trying to do, especially in these times. And what can you let go of? Do you have this expectation that your child's going to be an A student all the way through? Maybe you can think about that a little differently now. Or do you have an expectation that you're going to always be there for your child and you're not going to make any mistakes? I mean, let some of it go. If your child is missing their guitar lessons or their violin lessons, okay, there's time for that. Maybe that's putting you over the top. So I think managing your own expectations is important. Then I think another thing folks can do is focus on what's going well. Think about all that negative talk we all do. And that's part of our brain wiring, that negativity. But there probably are some good things going on too. So focus on what you are doing well, what's going well in the family. Write it down. Every day, try to think, today I'm going to focus on the things that are going well and, keep track of it. It'll make you feel, the right hormones will come into play, those happy hormones. You'll feel better. And clearly something is going well and you're doing the best you can under the circumstances. So look for things that are going well. What was my next one? Well, we've talked about it. When you need help, ask for help. It's not shameful. It's really very healthy. And your kids will appreciate it too. If you need support, it's nothing to be ashamed of. If you need to reach out, be it a friend, a therapist, whatever it is that a coach, whatever you need for support, I say don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a healthy thing. And we've talked about that probably enough, but
yeah, it's really modeling behavior though, because you want your kids to communicate with you. So you should show them that reach out and ask for help when they need it with you. So if they see you
doing it, of course. I mean, modeling is all about parenting. I mean, they're watching us all the time. So if you're modeling the kindness and the vulnerability, they see that it's okay. And I guess one other one is prioritizing connection over correction. I think, yes, our kids need boundaries and you need to be consistent, but you don't have to control everything. I think there's a tremendous instinct in parents to feel like they're in control of everything. And if you're that's your nature to be controlling, you really try to have to look at that because your child, if you're always upset and angry and nagging and screaming, it breaks that whole connection. So try to listen to your kids, ask them what's going on and make the connection deeper. And I think you're right that this pandemic is allowing us time for that. So if you say, okay, the dishes won't get done, but let's have a chat. If your kid is into there's moments that you need to grab when they appear to, sit down and really share and connect and show them that uncomfortable emotions, we all have them, but it's what you do with them.
Yeah, I love that. And in fact, you made me think when you were talking earlier about the expectations piece, like it's really not about being perfect parents or creating perfect children or having perfect families, right? It's about connection. It's about connection and having that that trust, that foundation of trust that's in place. And that's really what it's about. As I think when you have that, then whenever you do have something come up in the family that's a bigger issue, if that's in place,
foundation is there.
Yeah. So I think that's really, really important. So, well, we're at that time. I love this conversation. I feel like you and I could probably talk all day and just solve all these issues.
You're tired of listening to us though?
Yeah, probably, but but anyway, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's great having you. I'm glad we had to reschedule this a few times, and so I'm glad we got here. This is good. And anyway, but we do close out the show, and I mentioned this to you with a dot, which we call a drop of thought. Think of it as like a little pearl of wisdom. So if you were going to leave that parting dot, that little drop, what would that be for the audience?
Well, I already mentioned emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something for people to all think about. But really, one of the things I like to say is that parenting is an inside-out process. You really have to dig in order to give out. So it's important to think about who you are, your self-awareness, where you're coming from, what is making you who you are, and then you can really give better when you dig in a little bit.
I like that. I like that. It's kind of like parenting's an inside job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Yes, thank you. And, those of you who know me, who've watched the show or know my work, my heart is really just about this connection of family. So I share the same dot, but it really is the foundation of everything I do, which is that ripples don't flow in, they flow out. And if we really do want to see change out in our world, then it starts with us in our own homes, with our own families first. So make that connection. I wrote down prioritizing connection over correction. I love that. Some really good nuggets today. Thank you. Till next time, everyone. We'll see you soon. So bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.